Hello, I wanted to put together a video series this year highlighting this Dynasty League here, and also I'll cover our redraft league in the same kind of breath here, just give a little extra content. This is the first video, not going to be the best quality, maybe get some equipment down the road, so bear with me on the audio and the visuals here. But thought I would just kind of go through and talk about our teams on the Dynasty and Redraft, maybe talk about some trades, maybe talk about also some predictions, and look at some analytics here from Dynasty Daddy, the website that I use. It's free to use, so I like to use it, and it gives some good insights on a few things. And as with everything, just make your own opinions based on the data that you have available in front of you. So we'll start with I think the trade here. There's only been one trade this week so far. Maybe we'll get some more trades in before the start of the season. This league is a bit hit or miss on trades. Sometimes we trade all the time. Other times we never trade. So we'll see what this year brings out. But I did put together a trade with Isaac this week. You'll see why here in a second. I can break down more of my thought process here. But he had Saquon, and I wanted him, so I needed a good RB2. Pretty much the only RB in my room that was worthy starting was Gibbs, so wanted to beef that up a little bit as I hopefully make a championship run this year and demolish everybody in my path. So I traded Devonta Smith, solid wide receiver 2, can put up wide receiver 1 numbers. A.J. Brown goes down. He's their guy that they're going to throw to. So I really like Devonta Smith there. He is a good player. Hated to give him up. And also with Garrett Wilson, I think he's also a fantastic player, obviously. Hasn't had the best situation. But, it reminds me of DJ Moore here, where he didn't have a good situation. And he went to Chicago and from the Panthers there. And then he started being a decent receiver there, especially whenever he was playing with Justin Fields, which is now playing with Garrett Wilson. Lots of things change around there, different coaching, different team makeup, so maybe not be the same output. Hopefully it is. Hopefully Garrett Wilson does a great job for Isaac this year. Anytime I trade with someone, I want to make sure that what they get in return is also going to do good. I don't want to always just rip people's heads off, but I do want to make it a fair trade. So I had put together this trade, and we traded some draft picks too, just to even out the numbers on the calculator there. So just to make that a little more even there. And the only thing else I see here for trades, Kelly does have Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence on the trade block there. So if you're looking for a QB, those are two solid QBs. Offer him something. I'm sure that y'all can work something out. So hopefully encourage some more trading. One thing I'll note as well, which I think is a blunder on Isaac's part, he got 2 players in this trade, which made him have to drop some players. He dropped Jaden Reed and Marvin Mims, both questionable receivers, and they're not the number ones, maybe the number 2, maybe not. So I can see why he dropped them, but both these players have tremendous upside, and we'll talk about his team in a minute, but I think that he could have dropped maybe some other players instead of them to make his team a little stronger. And he also picked up Amari Cooper. Statistically, changing teams, he's older. He's a great player. It's going to be tough for him to kind of get a foothold there unless some injuries happen in front of him. But he's a very risk-reward kind of player, very lots of upside, as long as he doesn't get hurt. So I think that that's not a bad pickup there. But I did go ahead and pick up Jaden Reed as because I had one more person in my bench there to put because I only got one player out of 2. So I think that he is an upside play, especially if there's some injuries in that receiver room. And it's not him; it was him last year. So we'll see how this year folds out. So if you look at the rankings here in Dynasty League with the Dynasty Daddy website, you can see that I've built a bit of a powerhouse team the last few years. Coming in last a few years ago, And then now I hopefully gonna make a good run this year. You never know. It's fantasy football. Things happen. So we'll see what happens there. But you'll see my team here. I had Jahmyr Gibbs before Saquon. I had old Bill there, and then just a bunch of question marks. Maybe turn into something. Lots of backups. It was a rough room, so I needed something. I had the wide receiver depth even after trading those two wide receivers. You'll see, according to Keep Trade Cut, I'm still ranked number one with my wide receivers. Picked up Ibuka with the first round pick in the Dynasty League this year, so that helps out there. And then you'll see here with Isaac's team, he's kind of rebuilding. So he's doing the smart thing by rebuilding with some receivers. So he's going to start filling out his receivers, I believe. So trading some high-end RB talent this year that's probably going to not last much longer than Saquon. So it's a really smart move on his part. Start building some young receivers there. You see his average age is 26.3. He's now the second ranked on the receiving room there. So he's got a lot of ways to go. He would not be first because I'm such such a gap there, but 57,000 to 48,000 if you add up those. I also got maybe a few more receivers than him and maybe anyone else, so that kind of drives that number one rank there. But he's got a good room. He's got a good room. If he would have kept Jaden Reed, now you see up here, Jaden Reed has 4.1 thousand, over 4,000 in points, and this is just how valuable other people think he is. Of course, Keep Trade Cut, that's how they work. So you can see that he has a good amount of points there that I picked up. So I dropped these two, Garrett Wilson and Smith here, 6,300 and 5,800. So if I had Jaden Reed in that calculator, it would have been a big difference. We would have got that trade done as is, but we would have had to add more pieces. So he dropped him. I picked him up. Again, high upside player. He when he was healthy last year, did really good. And then, of course, Love got hurt last year a bit too. So, I mean, it's one of those things. Maybe he'll bounce back this year. Hoping he does, and then maybe I can trade him back to Isaac. But you'll see that he had some other players he could have dropped if he does use websites like this. And I encourage everyone here to use websites like this, make this league a bit more competitive. I would say most of us are pretty competitive, but just give us a little more background here. He could drop this person here, Khalil Mullings. I think that's a rookie there. Not even 100% sure much information on him, which is not probably a good sign because I do a lot of research there. Maybe he's a very under the radar sleeper though I don't know about, and he'll explode. And you can see he picked up Amari Cooper, which is only 1,300, and a lot of that has to do with his age and dynasty. He may have a good year this year, but I would say that he's probably not going to have much longer. So if he has a good year this year, that's great, but I would say that this may be his last hurrah. And he's got, some other people here that maybe he could have dropped. I can understand wanting to keep Isaac Tesla. Being a rookie, see what he's made of. Maybe he'll take that 2 spot on the Lions. Probably not, but he might. And then, he's got Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, a couple older guys. Could still be a very important role this year. So lots of good redraft receivers. So kind of looking at some other teams here, you'll see, Bryce has a decent team overall. He's high ranked on QB, RB, receiver, tight end. Tight end's hard, especially in this type of league. There's no tight end premium. So, largely you can probably ignore tight end and be okay as long as you have the depth to fill out your flex spots and your main spots there with the running backs and receivers, and he's got decent enough QBs. The issue he's going to run into this year, I think, is who he wants to play, especially if J.J. McCarthy gets off to a good start or starts in the roof. He's going to have kind of really 3, maybe 4 with Anthony Richards as well. So he's going to have some tough decisions to make week in and week out this year, I believe. Rants here, straight trash homie. He's put together a pretty decent team. You see his RB room is fantastic. He's got the best RB room according to Keep Trade Cut. He's got a lot of depth here, right? He's got a good depth in QB. He's going to be in the same position, I think, as Bryce there, is trying to figure out, which which matchups to play each week, especially if Cam Ward does pop off. He's not in the best team, but we saw Jaden Daniels last year kind of not being the best team either, and still was successful in fantasy, and he in his team he turned the Commanders team around. So he's got a good depth there. His wide receiver room is lacking a bit, right? He's got some young talent in Tedroa. Jalen Waddle is still considered young. Jacoby, he's gonna be probably a wide receiver 3 on his team, maybe 2, but probably 3. And then Godwin, if he stays healthy, he's really good. He's on a good team, good situation. So if he can stay healthy, he's got some injury concerns right now, but maybe down the stretch he pops up. Christian Kirk, fantastic receiver. He could definitely pop up as the wide receiver 2 on the Texans this year. Given their O-line situation, they're going to have to throw the ball pretty quick. So I think Kirk kind of specializes in those quick dump offs there. Christian Watson, he's good when he's healthy. A couple years ago, he was much more points there, 2,400, almost 2,000 points. So he has a big drop off, and then he's got a dart throw with Andre there. His tight end room is fantastic. Trey McBride, so very good there. Overall, I think he has a pretty decent year this year if he can make the right picks and the right matchups. Jody, or 3x champ, he's always somehow winning. So I wish that he would stop winning, but he always pulls it out. He carries him really good as his running backs and receivers. A lot of these have some question marks this year, so we'll see if this may be his downfall year. Fantastic QB in Joe Burrow with the stack with Chase and Higgins, so kind of got the double there. If the Bengals do good this year, he's going to do good this year, so I'm hoping that they don't do as well. He's got Jefferson. Working with the rookie QB this year may hinder him a little bit, but it's Justin Jefferson. He's gonna be fine. So he's got the top 2 wide receiver assets right now in Dynasty, and I think that is it's very much the reason why he's won a lot. Also, he's got Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams. When they're playing and healthy, they are very good. Brees, he's fallen off a bit, but he's still very talented. So we'll see if the new coaching staff coming in can give him a boost, get him back to where he was. He's got to worry about Braylon Allen this year being a talent as well. So we'll see what happens there. And he's got a bunch of dart throws here. I'm not going to go through every person there on his team, but he's got some dart throws, some upside picks there, namely JMO and Calvin Ridley, I think, and then also Trey Benson, J.K. Dobbins there. Lots of upside there with those picks, with those players. Wide receiver room is looking good, as I said. Tight ends are also looking good there. I think that he's got a good tight end room, especially if Tyler Warren plays out like he should. That offense should hopefully run through him. Now he's really stacked on the Colts and the Bengals, so hopefully, they do good for him. We'll see what happens there. Alrighty, and then Kelly here. Kelly's got a fantastic team. He's won a few times as well, I think twice, and he's always putting up big points each week. So he's got that high upside team, and when they hit, and they hit a lot. So he is a powerhouse as well. He's got Lamar Jackson, probably the QB1 this year. If not, he's going to be very close, as long as he doesn't get hurt. HN has the ability to be a RB1 this year. AJ Brown, a WR1 potential as well. So he's got a chance in each 3 of these to get to those top of the charts there. And then he's got lots of good quality RBs here. He did take Quinshon Judkins in our Dynasty draft. We'll see what happens. Big question mark there. If he pans out, that's going to make his running back room even better. But if he doesn't, then he's going to be really having an aging RB room, except for Achan. So he's going to probably need to either take a good push this year or start midway of the year, maybe having a fire sale and rebuilding a bit on his RB room, because they're not going to have much more value. I don't think next year Kenneth Walker, Derrick Henry, Dave Montgomery, I think will all be declining next year. So, we'll see what he does there. He may hang on to him until the wheels fall off. Wide receiver room, he's going to need some help this year, I think, on wide receivers. I think that he's got A.J. Brown, which, again, top receiver, good offense, but he's very hit or miss. He's got Devonta Smith there and Saquon, so he's got a lot of competition for his targets. So we'll see what happens this year. A lot of people are predicting that the Eagles are going to have to play a bit more this year. They're going to have a harder schedule, so maybe throw the ball more this year, which would be good, I think, for everybody. So hopefully A.J. Brown does good. Of course, we know about Rice being suspended, and he's got a bunch of dart throws down here. I don't like a lot of them, to be honest. Mike Evans is okay. He may try to capitalize this year on trading Mike Evans at the top here for some younger guys, maybe some picks. Really, I think for Kelly, he's kind of in that borderline where he's going to make a decision on, do I want to compete or do I want to start rebuilding? Because he's got a lot of pieces here where if he wants to kind of take a step back this year, but trade these players to the more contending teams, he could get a lot of value out of that, So we'll see what he does there. Knowing Kelly, I think he'll just try to power through and see if he can win another year, and then figure out the things going forward. We got Ryan. He is new to the league this year. He inherited a great team. He's got Hurts as QB. I don't think he's having questions there. RB room is a little iffy. He definitely needs some help with some RBs there. He's got R.J. Harvey, which I think will be the starting running back. Maybe not right away because he's a rookie, but he's I think a decent running back, especially for Sean Payton. Pacheco, he's hit or miss, but Kareem Hunt's still there, so I think that I think they'll kind of share that backfield. So we'll see if what happens there. High-powered offense, typically, they do like to run the ball a bit more. So we'll see what happens this year for that. Swift, I think, is a sneaky good player this year. So he's got an okay room, ETN and Jones. So the vibe he has is great. He's just going to have to watch for injuries, especially on those bye weeks. He might get to a situation where he's not going to have anyone to play, and he's going to pick up, some random person on the waivers that probably isn't going to get him much points. So just having a little more depth here, I think, would help for RBs. Wide receiver room, he's good to go. I think he's got CeeDee Lamb, which is contending probably for that number one spot as well with wide receivers. You got Sutton there. Worthy, big upside play, risk reward. DK, I think, will get fed the ball this year from Aaron Rodgers. So he's switching teams. Statistically, typically whenever you switch teams, it's not the best thing to do, but DK is a big talent, so we'll see if he can put up big numbers for Ryan this year. And he's got some dart throws down here. I like the Alec Almanor pick with his dynasty. I think he could potentially rise as the number 2 on his team this year with the Titans. We'll see if he does. If Cam Ward can pop off and really raise the bar for them, I think that would be great. Got Kyle Pitts here, the perennial Kyle Pitts. We'll see what happens. Maybe this year's his year finally. Oh, goodness. If he went to a better situation, Kyle Pitts would have been a monster in the league, but his situation's really limited him. He's got the talent, of course, everybody knows that. He's got Mark Andrews, probably the last hurrah for Mark Andrews. Again, tight ends aren't the biggest deal in our league here. Largely, if you don't have one of the top 3 or 4, you're just competing against someone else that doesn't, and you're not really at a disadvantage. Now, if you are playing someone that has one of the top few, then maybe you're at a little bit more of a disadvantage. So, let's see here. Isaac, we already talked about his team a little bit. He's building his wide receiver depth. His running back room is still needing some extra, younger guys in there. Jacobs and Cook just got paid. I think he's going to be around for a while, but Jacobs probably got a couple, 3 more years maybe if he doesn't get much injury. Tyrone Tracy's probably going to get pushed out this year by Scatterbo, I would say. And then with his wide receiver, and we already talked about that a bit. His tight end, George Kittle, is great. I think he's still young enough to get a couple, 3 years out of that as well, especially if, San Francisco stays competitive. So we'll see what happens there. And his QB room is still pretty decent. Kind of a lot of tier 2, tier 3 guys. So we'll see if they can, weekly matchups, if he can put something together there for them. Good old Pirtle got last year. Probably get last this year, I hope, but probably not. We'll see. he had the first pick in the dynasty draft, so of course he got Genty, big boost there. Chase Brown's in it for a good year. If McCaffrey can stay healthy, which was his issue last year for Pirtle, he did not have Genty, and he didn't have McCaffrey, so he basically just had Chase Brown, and that was not a good situation for him. So he was basically playing with two arms tied on his back. It was not good. Mahomes also fell off a bit last year, so I would say for Pirtle, definitely need to add some QBs here. And you can see down here, there's a few that you can add. You can take some upside throws there, or upside people, but Daniel Jones would be a decent person to add, I would say. Just, you never know what's going to happen there. So always get you a little depth this year on that. Wide receiver room, lots of upside guys, lots of young guys, except for Tyreek and Adams, but everyone else is relatively young. And Hopkins, he's got Hopkins on here still. Which lots of old guys there with those three, but the rest of them I think are relatively young, so I think he's going to have some upside. I think that he would also benefit from trading away some of these aging receivers, as this is probably their last year or two, for some younger guys or some picks, so start rebuilding there on that. He's got a good tight end room here. Davenport is young. Kelsey could have a good year this year. We'll see. I think this will probably be his last year, so maybe they'll feed him the ball, maybe try to break some records. So maybe Pearl does have a decision to make each week on who to play between Laporta and Kelsey. We got Drew here. Drew, he's got a decent team. I mean, he's got a lot of upside with his team. Definitely need to be in the rebuild mode, as you can see his rankings across a few of these here. For QBs, he's ranked 2, but he's got 5. So that kind of shoots that up a bit. The thing with Drew is he's not the person that loves Dynasty like some of us. So a lot of times he'll auto draft on Dynasty, which sometimes works out, sometimes doesn't. You can see last year he got Ladd McConkey, which is great. And he's had some other good picks by auto picking. He's got Jaden Daniels, which is also a stud QB for the next several years. Dak, I think, is going to have a good year this year. So he's got 2 solid QBs. The other 3 are very questionable. Geno could come out. We'll see. Reunited with Pete Carroll there. So he could come out and do really well. RB room is looking a little slim here. He's got Kamara. Jordan Mason, I think, is actually going to be good this year. So I would expect this 3,100 to go up this year, actually. I think he's going to be a riser. Kamara's going to be a follower just because it's Dynasty. He's getting older, right? Even if he does good production this year, his time's running out. So I think that, for Drew, if Kamara has a good week, that'll be a time to capitalize and trading with someone that's contending, to see if you can say, hey, I want to trade and get some picks, or trade and get some younger guys that I think that are going to increase in value, like Jordan Mason, I believe, will with the Vikings. He's got Tootin, which a lot of people are saying he did really good in camp this year, so we'll see if he can take over as maybe an RB2 or kind of a change of pace guy. We'll see what happens there in Jacksonville. Javonte, I think, is also a great upside pick for running back. So if he can really take over and they use him as a workhorse, we'll see. Changing teams again is never a good thing. Probably the reason that he didn't stay with Denver as well, especially with Sean Payton. So, we'll see if that works out for the Cowboys. They're going to need some help on that running back room there themselves. And Ramondre, I think, it's also kind of be underrated this year because of Travion Henderson coming in. A lot of people are saying he's going to take away a lot of work. I think it's going to be more split, 50-50-ish. We'll see what happens, though. They'll go probably the hot hand approach, I would assume, there, especially with the way that the Patriots coaching staff has done historically. I think that they'll go hot hand. Usually have two running backs that are solid in that offense. So he's got one of them. So and I think that the Patriots are a rising team this year, starting to get some pieces in place. He's got in right receiver room. He's got Ladd McConkey. Did great last year. Hopefully he'll keep building on that as a sophomore year. George Pickens, solid receiver, lots of upside as well. Olave, if he can stay healthy, there's not a lot of options on the Saints to throw it to, I don't think. So if he can stay healthy, he doesn't have Derek Carr there anymore, which seems like they were beefing last year a bit when they were healthy together. But they started off hot, and I think that Olave is a very talented receiver. So we'll see if that happens. If he has a good year this year, I would expect this number to go up a bit as he's starting to get into his prime years. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt. And the last few guys are kind of older or aging. Older guys or big question marks. So we'll see what happens there with that. But he's got the number one ranked tight end room, which is just because he has a lot of tight ends. Not a bad thing. On our week though, having I think max of 3 tight ends would be the way to go, just because they're not very valuable. I try to keep just 2 personally. But that gives you the options there. So if you see someone that needs tight end, packaging them with one of the other guys here, and start really start really rebuilding your team there. This is said update now, so I'm gonna update now. It threw me off. Start rebuilding your team there. I think would be the way to go. Personally, let's see. They probably just updated some of the things. It looks like everything is still pretty much in the same order though, so they probably just pushed a little update to update some of these numbers. Usually they don't change much unless there's some big news that happened there. And then last we have Brent. He's been unfortunate on some of the trades he's made the last few years. Didn't really work out. So he's in rebuild mode. So he needs to start taking the players that he can, which you'll see anytime you're in rebuild mode. If you look here, the players that are green are the players that you can trade away for the most value. So you want as many green players on your team as possible. So you can see Drew's got 2, Brent's got 1. So he's really going to need to start rebuilding, I would say here. He's just going to have a fire sale, which I had to do a few years ago. So you really just sell what you can, get picks. You're probably going to lose this year if you do that. If you don't do that, you still have a chance of making the playoffs, right? But at some point, you're just going to have to rip the cord. So I think Brent's kind of at that spot, unfortunately. Something that I like doing, actually, is rebuilding the team. I had a lot of fun rebuilding my team. Going from not a good team to one of the top teams. It's a great feeling. You should gotta do it the right way. Start with receivers, start getting young talent on them. So and then they last the longest. So and then kind of filling out the rest of your team. Quarterback. So I like to do receivers, quarterback. I don't really worry about tight end at all. I just try to pick up young guys, and if they pop off, when I'm rebuilding, great, and maybe have them stick around. But yeah, I don't really worry with them, and then kind of worry about running backs last, or second to last. With tight ends, just running backs are. I think you focus on them when you're wanting to contend and really start pushing for the championship, which is again one of the reasons I traded for Saquon, is because I think I'm in the spot now where I can afford to give up value elsewhere to kind of push. I think that Brent really needs to start selling what he can, not at a deep discount. So whenever you are looking to trade for draft pick, the best time to do it is in season. So we're there now pretty much, because they're less valuable to the people that are wanting to contend, right? So you trade James Conner, Tony Pollard, Travis Hunter. If he starts off hot, I think you have to trade him in your situation. And really, any of your receivers, they start off hot week 1, you trade them. You trade them for is what you can get. Hopefully, it's a first or second round pick this year or next year. Um, and you want to stack up and have 4, 5, 6 first and second round picks the next 2 years, and then that third year, which is kind of where I'm at now with my rebuild, your team is going to look hopefully a lot better if you can get those picks and make a leap there. So that's just kind of a quick overview of some power rankings. Our teams. This went a little longer than I thought it would, but it's the first kind of episode, quote unquote, of this for this year. So I think it's good to get a good overview there. We'll look at something I put in our group chat there, but the playoff calculator is really cool on this. It does a good job of kind of showing where people are. So if you're one of the bottom 4 teams, it's when you really, I think, should start rebuilding. The top 6 teams, you're pretty good to try to contend. But even here, the finals win. I think if you're below 10%, you still Kelly, Ryan, or Seegers and Isaac. You 3 are in the spot where you can make a decision right this season. Do I really want to push, or do I want to start rebuilding? And then when you rebuild, you trade your players for picks to the top teams there, and let the top teams battle it out and see who wins that way. But this is a good representation of looking at weekly matchups. So I'll look at this every week and see the updates. But right now, Jody is the favorite by a good margin there. Let's go ahead. I'm going to change it to ELO adjusted because I think that's a little more accurate. If you look at the website, it'll explain kind of what that does. But yeah, still Jody is still super strong, 27% to win the finals, and Bryce at 23%, and then we got myself at 21%, and then actually Pirtle. Look at Pirtle. Somehow he's at 18%. And this is ELO basically just looks at your matchups instead of just your overall team, what's traditional. So Pirtle looks like he's got a pretty good matchups going. So I honestly be surprised if this happens. But if all of his players stay healthy, namely McCaffrey, right? I don't see this being that outrageous. So he's actually got a good chance to win this year. So if he can make some trades, then maybe he pushes this year. Earlier I was talking about maybe rebuilding for him, but we'll see what happens. But you'll see if I click on traditional, he goes from the 4th to, he stays in the 4th actually. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see what happens then on that part. Alrighty, so I'll quickly cover the redraft as well, just because why not? If you don't want to listen to it, you can certainly turn this off, but no reason to make 2 separate videos for this here. So I'm just going to lump them together. Looking at redraft here, we'll go to our power rankings. For some reason on this site, if you do keep trade cut under the settings there, it doesn't list out all the players. So I have 0, so I'll show you here. So if I go to keep trade cut here, you see some of the players like Britton Strange has 0, which is not the case because he's a back end tight end, but he's got some upside, but he's not a 0. He plays on a team. No one that plays and starts in a position to be a 0. So what I was doing earlier was I was just using the actual Fantasy Daddy data there. So they created their own just to get a realistic thing here. You'll see that our top teams are top 3, and then I would say tier break, and then you got about 3 more, and tier break, and maybe 3 more, and the Pirtle being in the rear there. Now with redraft, this is a lot more volatile, so you'll see this go up and down a lot more, especially as we play in the season. Injuries and things like that is going to make a big difference. So whenever you're looking at in-season injuries, that makes a huge difference. So I always like to try to draft for depth personally on running backs and wide receiver. So you see my running back, wide receiver, I pretty much a lot of stacked. At the end, I grab my tight end and QB just because I wanted to hedge against injuries. Now, if you're ever in a league where someone steamrolls, it's usually because they did not have any injuries, but they also, just took early QB, early tight end, their wide receivers and running backs that they got early as well don't get hurt. So, I won't go through each team here because that would make this super long, but you can see just the rankings here and where everyone is. Bryce is the only one with super team, and the reason super team is because he has no team needs there. So if you look at Kelly, he says he needs running back and wide receiver. Not always the case. It's just looking at looking at your rankings, but this says receiver in rank 2, so maybe it's just depth. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know how they do that exactly, but you'll see that everyone's got numbers at least. So I think that is a good starting point for this here. And then again, we'll look at when I sent this in the group chat, but just to look at it again here, and we'll do ELO adjusted there as well. You'll see that Bryce actually has the best chance right now of winning at 46%, which is crazy. He had a really good draft, it looks like. So we'll see what happens. But he's got a good chance of winning. Everyone else is just playing for second, I believe. So now this is different than your value on the power rankings that I was just showing you there. This looks at like weekly matchups and things like that. So I think Bryce will be the guy to beat this year in redraft. So we'll see if he can take home a victory there. Anything can happen though. This is just preseason. So alrighty. Well, kind of some final thoughts here. Again on redraft. I think that Bryce is going to be the person to beat, like I just said. I think that if he doesn't get injuries, he'll probably win, just because his roster is pretty insane. He got some good picks falling to him, and he made the good picks there. So sometimes that's the way it falls, and I think he did a good job capitalizing on that there. He's got top QB, RB, wide receiver, tight ends where he's weak. So, he may shore up that a little bit by trading somebody. I don't know who he would trade, but he may do that. His running backs are great. As long as he, again, doesn't get hurt with Saquon or Kyron, I think he'll be fine. If they get hurt, though, the people behind him are lots of question marks. Caleb Johnson looks like he's listed as RB3 now on his team as of today with the starting positions, depth chart there. And then Jordan Mason, he's probably, 1A, 1B. I think he's probably the B right now. Could take over, though. And then Woody Marks, lots of injuries right now, but the O-line's not very good. So I think that he's a good player in a good spot, just maybe not the best O-line. So we'll see what he can do. The bye weeks I think are going to hurt Bryce, but he's got enough talent and firepower that he may just be able to play whoever he wants in those slots, and the starters he has that week it's good enough to win. So, and then as far as Dynasty goes, let me actually go back to that because I think I want to make a prediction there as well. So bear with me. Again, first episode of this, so I think that these will get better and more formatted as time goes on. Just looking at the teams, the power rankings, which really don't mean too much. We can switch this to contender view here and go up here to keep trade cut. I think that lists all of them on this. No, it still doesn't. See, keep trade cut is broken right now, I think. We can go back to Fantasy Day, though, and then contender view. So if you take out the draft capital, it's still showing me as the favorite according to the power rankings, with Bryce and Jody right behind me, and also Rance. But if you look at the playoff calculator again, I think that it's going to be a toss-up between me, Jody, and Bryce, I believe. I think all of us have a good chance. So it's just going to come down to who has the players that perform the best during the playoffs. I think that's going to be a prediction there. if I had a dark horse this year, it would be Pirtle. I think showing this here, a lot of people look at his team and maybe would second guess him, but he's definitely a dark horse. So we'll see what happens. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here. Hope you enjoyed it if you listened to it. Hopefully, I didn't bore you too much. If you have suggestions on things I should talk about, let me know. And I hope you have a great day.